Photography Daily, the assignment.
Monday is Assignment Day, where Jim Sollows, our special guest, sets a photography challenge or a way to think about your picture making for the next week. It's a challenge for everyone, whatever kind of photography interests you, whatever camera you hold, film, larger format, DSLR, mirrorless, compact or smartphone. It's all about the picture you see. As always, there's a show page on the website, photographydaily.show, and I'd love you to share the pictures you make for this challenge, which I can then upload to a show page for this edition. And you can check back, of course, to see pictures from previous editions. And before we meet Jim for his third assignment, my thanks to our wonderful patrons and mpb.com who sponsor this show. The number one company in the UK, the US and Europe, with bases in Brighton and Brooklyn and Berlin when it comes to buying, selling and trading used camera kit online. It's a safe place to do business with guarantees upon what you buy. A look ahead to the photo walk this week, and my guest is Simon Townsley, twice winner of the British Press Photographer of the Year. We talk about such a wide-angled variety of topics: trust, the media, the message about the media, Simon's photo stories of Ukraine, and a recent visit to Afghanistan.
The Taliban, first of all, rounded up. We're a 1,000-bed hospital. They brought in 3,000 people, so we had 3 to a bed. And we had to say, you can't bring all these guys in here because we can't feed them. We have no money. So now there are 300 people in a 1,000-bed hospital. And under that bridge that I photographed, there are 1,000 men, almost all men, living and dying in the most mind-blowing situation I've seen for a long time. You know, really looking into the pit when I stood on top of the bridge, wondering how I was actually going to photograph it.
Let's meet our guest for today, setting you a challenge for the new week then. This is Jim Sollows.
The assignment.
Recently, I had a guest on the show, Chris Burkhardt, who is a phenomenally talented, adventuring photographer. And we talked a lot about the fact that he made a lot of these images, the ones that we were talking about, in sort of almost sub-zero degree seas, oceans. But he did so, and I thought, well, this man's not frightened of anything. But it appears that he is frightened, or not so much frightened, but certainly sees a weakness in his ability to photograph on the street. And I don't want to give too much of a spoiler and give too much away, but we are talking about strengths and weaknesses for this particular assignment, aren't we?
Yes, we are. So this one is an assignment I give to every one of my students. When we meet for the first time, one of the things I ask them is, what are your weaknesses? What are the things you struggle with the most in photography? And it could be things like doing street portraits, interacting with people. Could be still life. Maybe it's flash. Maybe it's using the camera on manual. But identify what those weaknesses are. And one of the ways that we learn as photographers is by pushing those boundaries. So what I'll tell my students is to explore that weakness and to go off, and they've got 1 week to return to me a photo where they've encountered that. So for example, someone has a great aversion to shooting street portraits. I'll give them a week, and they have to go off, shoot a street portrait and bring it back and include the story that they've written up related to that street portrait. How did that all happen? And I can relate to this myself. I'm very much an introvert, despite the fact that I teach. In a social environment or just walking up to somebody on the street, I'm a quivering bowl of jelly.
Really? Wow.
I'm useless.
I would not have thought of that, Jim. I really wouldn't have.
Very much. And so street portraits is something that is almost impossible for me to do.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I've been able to overcome that is I not only shoot film, I shoot a lot of very old cameras, and I'll go out and I'll be shooting with a 1939 Leica or something like that. And inevitably people come up to me and interact with me, and I turn that around and get a street portrait. I'll actually give you an example of that as one of the photos that you can put into the show. So we'll talk about with the students about ways that they can get around their weaknesses, ways that they can enhance their skills. in those areas. But the goal is to explore that weakness, go off in 1 week and return a photo showing that they've accomplished that.
So it doesn't only have to be, I suppose, an emotional, can I call it a barrier? Such as street photography, where you feel intensely uncomfortable approaching a stranger and making a picture of him or her. It can be a technical thing. So for me, Jim, I'm thinking, right, I was about to list my weaknesses, and we could be here for a week. But I was thinking, in particular, balancing shots during the day with flash. Hopeless. I run a mile from it, Jim. And so it can be a technical thing, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, two of the most common ones I hear are flash and manual exposure, using your camera fully manual. Those are the most common ones that I encounter.
So you make up where your weakness is, of course, and you've heard some examples from Jim. And we're not looking for strengths, we're looking for weaknesses. And we want you to play to that weakness and produce a super image, don't we?
If not a super image, just give it your best shot.
And that's our challenge for this week. I'll be delighted to see what you produce and would love to show them on today's corresponding show page on the website photographydaily.show. Music on the show is, as ever, from artlist.io. Neil Fort, Emily Renier and Andrea Gilpin, my thanks to you for your support behind the scenes, and I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you on the Photo Walk.
The Assignment is a Loading Zone production.